welcome back. Today we are going to continue and wind up our general look at the nervous system by examining the physiology of the autonomic nervous system. After studying this chapter, dear students, you will be able to describe the components of the autonomic nervous system, differentiate between the structures of the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions in the autonomic nervous system, name the components of visceral reflex specific to the autonomic division to which it belongs, describe how the central nervous system coordinates and contributes to autonomic functions. The autonomic nervous system is often associated with the fight or flight response, which refers to the preparation of the body to either run away from a threat or to stand and fight in the face of that threat. To suggest what this means, consider the very unlikely situation of seeing a lioness hunting out on the savannah. Though this is not a common threat that humans deal with in the modern world, it represents the type of environment in which the human species thrived and adapted. The spread of human around the world to the present state of the modern age occurred much more likely than any species would adapt to environmental pressures such as predators. However, the reactions modern humans have in the modern world are based on this prehistoric situation. If your boss, for example, is walking down the hallway on Friday afternoon looking for volunteers to come in on the weekend, your response is the same as the prehistoric human seeing the lioness running across the savannah, fight or flight. Most likely your response to your boss, not to mention the lioness, would be flight, run away. The autonomic system is responsible for the physiological response to make that possible and hopefully successful. Adrenaline starts to flood your circulatory system, your heart rate increases, sweat glands become active, the bronchi of the lungs dilate to allow more air exchange. Pupils dilate to increase visual information. Blood pressure increases in general, and blood vessels dilate in skeletal muscles. Time to run. Similar physiological responses would occur in preparation for fighting of the threat. This response should sound a bit familiar. The autonomic nervous system is tied into emotional responses as well, and the fight or flight response probably sounds like a panic attack. In the modern world, these sorts of reactions are associated with anxiety as much as with response to a threat. It's ingrained in the nervous system to respond like this. In fact, the adaptations of the autonomic nervous system probably predate the human species and are likely to be common to all mammals and perhaps shared by many animals. That lioness might herself be threatened in some other situation. However, the autonomic nervous system is not just about responding to threats. Besides the fight or flight response, there are the responses referred to as rest and digest. If that lioness is successful in her hunting, then she is going to rest from the exertion. Her heart rate will slow, breathing will return to normal, the digestive system has a big job to do. Much of the function of the autonomic nervous system is based on the connections within an autonomic or visceral reflex. So, Divisions of the nervous system. The nervous system can be divided into two functional parts: the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The major differences between the two systems are evident in the responses that each produces. The somatic nervous system causes contraction of skeletal muscles. The autonomic nervous system controls cardiac and smooth muscle as well as glandular tissue. The somatic nervous system is associated with voluntary responses, though many can happen without conscious awareness, like breathing. And the autonomic nervous system is associated with involuntary responses, such as those related to homeostasis. Here are some differences between the autonomic and somatic nervous systems. First, somatic nervous system. Motor activity is always excitatory in somatic. Muscles and rest are signaled to perform specific tasks. Sensory input is conscious, as we said. There is only one neuron between the CNS and a given effector organ, making for a very, very long cell in some cases. Autonomic nervous system motor activity is either excitatory or inhibitory. Sensory input is generally unconscious, although extremes of sensation may be consciously perceived. There are two neurons in autonomic nervous system, two neurons between the CNS and the effector organ, with a synapse in the paraspinal ganglion. The autonomic nervous system regulates many of the internal organs, though through a balance of two aspects of or divisions. In addition to the endocrine system, the autonomic nervous system is instrumental in homeostatic mechanism in the body. The two divisions of the autonomic nervous system are the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. The sympathetic system is associated with the fight or flight response, and parasympathetic activity is referred to by the epithet of rest and digest. Homeostasis is the balance between the two systems. At each target effector, dual innervation determines activity. For example, the heart receives connections from both the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. One causes heart rate to increase, whereas the other causes heart rate to decrease. Two neuron pathways of the autonomic nervous system. First neuron is preganglionic neuron. Preganglionic neuron has cell body in spinal cord, synapses at the ganglion with the postganglionic neuron. In sympathetic division, preganglionic fibers are short, but postganglionic fibers are long. In parasympathetic, vice versa, preganglionic fibers are long, but postganglionic fibers are short. Sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. To respond to a threat, to fight, or to run away, the sympathetic system causes divergent effects as many different effector organs are activated together for a common purpose. More oxygen needs to be inhaled and delivered to skeletal muscle. The respiratory, cardiovascular, and musculoskeletal systems are all activated together. Additionally, sweating keeps the excess heat that comes from muscle contraction from causing the body to overheat. The digestive system shuts down so that blood is not absorbing nutrients when it should be delivering oxygen to skeletal muscles. To coordinate all these responses, the connections in the sympathetic system diverge from a limited region of the central nervous system to a wide array of ganglia that project to the many effector organs simultaneously. The complex set of structures that compose the output of the sympathetic system make it possible for these disparate effectors to come together in a coordinated systemic change. The sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system influences the various organ systems of the body through connection emerging from the thoracic and upper limbar spinal cord. It's referred to as the thoracolumbar system to reflect this anatomical basis. Thus, the sympathetic output of the nervous system originates out of the lateral horn of the thoracolumbar spinal cord. An axon from one of these central nerves projects by way of the ventral spinal nerve root and spinal nerve to a sympathetic ganglion, either in the sympathetic chain ganglia or one of the collateral locations, where it synapses on a ganglionic neuron. These preganglionic fibers release acetylcholine, which excites the ganglionic neuron through the nicotinic receptor. The axon from the ganglionic neuron, the postganglionic fiber, then projects to a target effector where it will release norepinephrine to bind to an adrenergic receptor, causing a change in the physiology of that organ in keeping with the broad divergent sympathetic response. The postganglionic connections to sweat glands in the skin and blood vessel supplying skeletal muscle. The sympathetic system prepares the body for fight and flight, which has the following effects. First, the pupils dilate. The heart rate and force of contraction increase. Blood glucose levels rise. And respiratory effort increases in rate and depth. Blood is shunted away from non-essential organs. Blood is shunted to the skeletal muscles, the myocardium, and the liver for making glucose and fatty acids. The gastrointestinal tract is slowed down or sometimes stopped. The adrenal medulla is stimulated to release epinephrine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is the chemical mediator at the junction between the somatic nervous system axon and the target organs. Accidental injection of adrenaline into the bloodstream acts on the somatic nervous system and causes not only physical excitation but also extreme terror in the patient. The autonomic nervous system is the set of nerves that is functioning all the time, whether you are awake, asleep, sometimes even when you are in coma. Within the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system promotes rest and recovery, and the sympathetic nervous system promotes flight or fight, as we said. The two main pathways for the autonomic nervous system are the general visceral motor, efferent neurons, and the general visceral sensory, afferent neurons. The entire system is involuntary. Some degree of cerebral control is possible during times of extreme fear and anxiety. Modern biofeedback methods have achieved some control in trained individuals. So next system is parasympathetic division of the next part is parasympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system. The parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system is named because its central neurons are located on either side of the thoracolumbar region of the spinal cord. Para equals beside or near. The parasympathetic system can also be referred to as the craniosacral system or outflow, because the preganglionic neurons are located in nuclei of the brainstem and the lateral horn of the sacral spinal cord. The connections or circuits of the parasympathetic division are similar to the general layouts of the sympathetic division, with a few specific differences. The preganglionic fibers from the cranial region travel in cranial nerves, whereas preganglionic fibers from the sacral region travel in spinal cord. The targets of these fibers are terminal ganglia, which are located near or even within the target effector. These ganglia are often referred to as intramural ganglia when they are found within the walls of the target organ. The postganglionic fiber projects from the terminal ganglia a short distance to the target effector or to the specific target tissue within the organ. Comparing the relative length of axons in the parasympathetic system, the preganglionic fibers are long and the postganglionic fibers are short, because the ganglia are close to and sometimes within the target effectors, as we said. Thus, the parasympathetic output is based in the brainstem and sacral spinal cord. Neurons from particular nuclei in the brainstem or from the lateral horn of the sacral spinal cord, preganglionic neurons, projects to terminal intramural ganglia located close to or within the wall of target effectors. These preganglionic fibers also release acetylcholine onto nicotinic receptors to excite the ganglionic neurons. The postganglionic fibers then contact the target tissues within the organ to release acetylcholine, which binds to muscarinic receptors to induce rest and digest responses. The parasympathetic nervous system prepares the body for rest, recovery, and relaxation, and it promotes energy conservation. When it's activated, the pupils constrict, the heart rate and force of contraction decrease, blood glucose as well, levels fall, respiratory effort decreases in rates and death. The gastrointestinal tract resumes normal function, ready for digestion and absorption. Paradoxical parasympathetic fear reactions include involuntary defecation and urination, unfortunately. For brain structures, autonomic control is based on the visceral reflexes, composed of the afferent and efferent branches. These homeostatic mechanisms are based on the balance between the two divisions of the autonomic system, which results in tone for various organs that it based on the predominant input from the sympathetic or parasympathetic systems. Coordinating that balance requires integration that begins with four brain structures like the hypothalamus and continues into the brain stem and the spinal cord. So the autonomic system integrates sensory information and higher cognitive processes to generate output which balances homeostatic mechanisms. The central autonomic structure is the hypothalamus, as we said, which coordinates sympathetic and parasympathetic efferent pathways to regulate activates of the organ systems of the body. The majority of hypothalamic output travels through the medial forebrain bundle and the dorsal longitudinal fasciculus to influence brainstem and spinal components of the autonomic nervous system. The medial forebrain bundle also connects the hypothalamus with higher centers of the limbic system, where emotion can influence visceral responses. The amygdala is a structure within the limbic system that influences the hypothalamus in the regulation of the autonomic system, as well as the endocrine system, These higher centers have descending control of the autonomic system through brain stem centers, primarily in the medulla, such as the cardiovascular center. This collection of medullary nuclei regulates cardiac function as well as blood pressure. Sensory input from the heart, aorta, and carotid sinuses project to these regions of the medulla. The solitary nucleus increases sympathetic tone of the cardiovascular system through the cardiac accelerator and vasomotor nerves. The nucleus ambiguous and the dorsal motor nucleus both contribute fibers to the vagus nerve, which exerts parasympathetic control of the heart by decreasing heart rate. So the autonomic nervous system is the set of nerves that is functioning all the time, whether you are awake, asleep. Within the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system promotes rest and recovery, and the sympathetic nervous system, as we said, promotes flight and fight. The two main pathways for the autonomic nervous system are the general visual motor efferent neurons and the general visual sensory afferent neurons. The entire system, as we said, is involuntary. Some degree of cerebral control is possible during times of extreme fear and anxiety. Modern biofeedback methods have achieved some control in trained individuals. That's it, dear students. Bye-bye and good luck.